Welcome to the Ground to Grow podcast, a living conversation between two friends exploring the tension between living in rhythm with ourselves and the structures of the world we live in. Hi, my name is Aparna Majmudar, and I am a nature-informed coach and facilitator.
Hi, I'm Lily Lövei, menstrual cycle coach and yoga teacher. In this episode of Ground to Grow, we keep exploring the archetypes of a women's life. And now we talk about the Enchantress archetype, the etymology behind it, how we relate to this archetype through our lives, specifically through our divorces, how we dealt with grief, self-acceptance, self-love, and how we processed all these emotions. We also talk about attachment styles, a little about attachment theory and how it relates to our lives, our partnerships, and all the inspiration that comes for us for the Enchantress. So enjoy this episode. Hi, Aparna.
Hi, Lily.
How are you today? Where are you in your cycle?
So in this moment, I'm just really, really happy to be here with you, quite simply, and find it so nourishing and joyful. I'm on day 3 of my cycle, and what's interesting is that it feels that I'm feeling it a lot more than I have in the past of deep winter, in a sense of this like slow moving energy um that's that's also holding a stillness. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's also really delicious. It's like almost a bit of a sacred pause between a lot of movement and activity. And I've given myself space for that in terms of not overcommitting myself and making time to make a slow breakfast or slowly walk and drink in the cumulus clouds that were forming near my morning sit spot. And I also know it's such a privilege to have that space and make that space. And honestly, I'm really happy for myself and proud of myself for creating that.
Oh, it was really beautiful to listen to this. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. And what about
Oh,
you? Where are you in your cycle and how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really, really good and also very grateful to be here with you. And cycle day 4, so very, very close to you. It's interesting that we cycle sync since
Mhm.
we started this podcast. Um, and it was so interesting to listen to your experience because now I realized in this new cycle that my winter is before menstruation. It happens before menstruation. And this is most of the time, this is true. So the first day of my cycle is already spring for me.
Mm.
I have so much energy usually. And this time, especially, I think the spring outside amplifies my inner spring too. But it was just, okay, go, go, go. And so many ideas flooded to me, and I had energy to execute those ideas or start the planning phase of how to execute them. And it almost felt like I have so much to do that it almost felt overwhelming, to be honest, the first 2 days.
Mm.
And I just want to reflect on that. Yes, maybe I should preserve my energy so I have more left for the upcoming days or weeks. But also the fact that because I have PMDD, there's a lot of time is just lost in the months. Sometimes it's weeks. And this is just maybe a normal reaction to, mm, yeah, for those lost days. So I can actually do what I want.
Yeah, it's almost like you're getting wind behind your sail of like, here's this push um as as a gift or a balancing of those days when you don't have the capacity to do much.
Yeah.
And I also, as you were speaking, I was acknowledging, okay, like, why am I feeling winter so deeply right now? And I'm looking back at the month I've had, and it makes sense. It's been a really intense month in relation to um, needing to show up so fiercely and like standing on business in relation to my divorce process, and also having one of my children hospitalized and surgery, and then the care required to tend to him and my other children while I was in my inner fall. So I'm thinking that my body is reacting to the need to like more deeply resource because um so many resources were used.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's really good that you can take this time. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, our topic for today is the Enchantress archetype. And I just wanted to start by saying that this period that I'm in, day 4 of my cycle or the spring of my cycle, made me realize, or like I had these flood of feelings that there's so much I want to do in this life. It really does. And finally, I can do all these things. And I think this has to do a lot with the Enchantress, because I feel like I'm in that phase of my life where I can finally embody this archetype. Um, I'm also at that age, but many things have changed, and I arrived to this point where I can really make my ideas happen and my dreams happen. I think I have the most importantly the mental resources to do that, but also other support. And there's I really feel this potentiality
Mm-hmm.
very strongly. So it's like I want to talk about things, I want to create content, and historically it's been really difficult for me to record myself, or just to talk to the camera, or um, present my ideas, especially in another language. Or I was always in between these two languages, so when I lived abroad, my English was stronger than my Hungarian, and I was dreaming in English and I was thinking in English. And then I moved back, and now my Hungarian is much stronger. But I would love to have like a balance when both of these languages are at the same level. I don't know if I ever get to that point, but my point now is that I don't care anymore. So it's just whatever, however it sounds, I will just need to say it. I need to say it out loud, and I need to let the world know that I know about these things, meaning like cycle awareness or menstrual health and topics for women. And it doesn't matter how I say it, it needs to be said. And I need to express myself. Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah,
Finally.
I love that so much. And I think you're speaking really directly to what's happening for the Enchantress archetype, which I just want to unpack a little bit for those listening or viewing. What I heard you speak to was truth telling. And that's like the cornerstone or like center point, the way I visualize it. I'm super visual of like she lives from a place of truth. And what's interesting, when I was looking up the etymology of the Enchantress, um, it goes back to meaning to cast a spell or to bewitch. And I really want to use this moment to reclaim that description because I think it's through a certain lens of she's potentially dangerous. I think she's dangerous because she lives from a place of her inner truth. And actually, in many ways, she's no longer under the spell of the the wider culture or the patriarchy. She's singing from her own inner landscape. And I mean, that's so gorgeous. And that's something that we do not see modeled in the world around us that often. Like, I do not see that in um, any Hollywood movies, for example,
Mhm.
in any rom-coms. Like, those tend to still be about the maiden or a woman past her prime and how she's like struggling um in terms of no longer being seen by men or the culture or appreciated. It's not like, oh my God, these women are full of power that they're resourcing from within their own oracle, their own truth, their own knowing. And before we started recording and during the lead up to this podcast, you were talking about watching the change of the guards in the Hungarian political scene. And I'd love for you to share more about that because I think it really speaks to here's a new model and here is people standing on truth and living from that place.
Mm, was so inspirational for me to watch this change. So, in the new government, there are many women present as ministers and also as just elected officials. And as I was watching the recordings, there's a lot to watch nowadays. So, um, if you're a Hungarian watching this, you know that we watch is this right now. Was that these women are all in their 40s, 50s, and they are just so beautiful to me, really, and inside and out. And they really embody a quality that I admire, which is they are professional. They they have many things on the table already. They achieved a lot of things. They studied, they worked, they had their careers outside of politics. Especially now in this government, this is very typical that they had a different career before, and um, and now they are in the public eye and they are standing very strongly in the public eye. And also, yes, not to be superficial, but they are really beautiful from the outside. And I think this really goes against this stereotypical thinking that the maiden and this younger young women archetype is the most desirable, because for me, for my eyes, these women are more desirable in every sense of desire, but especially like as an inspiration. Oh, I want to be like her. It's they are someone who I can look up to. And I think this message is this echoed in society here. So it's really not just my a point of view, but I think this is a really, really beautiful message that we can admire these women, this age that they are in, and what they embody.
Mm.
While you were talking about the etymology, I was thinking that the other two names that I know for this archetype, um, and this is between the mother and the crone, just to be sure that everyone knows, is witch and wild woman.
Mhm.
And I think both these two other names have a negative connotation somehow, as the Enchantress does too, as you explained. And that says a lot. That this is like a dangerous woman. Be aware of this woman, and what I was also thinking that it's like the Kundalini energy that I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher, and what people ask me the most is like, is Kundalini energy dangerous? It is dangerous because then you start to live from your truth. So it's it's not dangerous because it does something to you, but it is dangerous because you will become someone that you supposed to be. You become your most authentic self, and then you start live from that truth, and that that is dangerous because other people will be jealous of you. I think, and you will lose many people that cannot keep up with this new self. And
Yeah.
at the same time, this is menopause too, or perimenopause that we talk about, which is the same thing as we talked about here, I feel like.
Which is also the autumn, the fall. And I mean, what we're speaking to in this series is all about pattern recognition. So even though the Enchantress stands between the mother and the crone, in each of our lives, in the different areas of our life, she like the energy will present or be knocking on the door like, I have something for you. And I love just thinking about a tree where it's changing its colors. You know, maybe it's showing red and orange and yellow, and also losing its leaves in the season. And what's left is the you know, the trunk of the tree, the branches, this bareness, which is not like soft and fuzzy. It's not comforting. It's not producing fruit. But it's standing deeply rooted in its own ground, and still spread out. And yeah, that helps me navigate the places in my life where it's really important to be very clear speaking and many ways unfuckwithable, of like no longer. Also, I mean, you just spoke about perimenopause, menopause, you know, the hormones are different. There's less estrogen, and I understand it. I don't understand how it works, but I understand that estrogen gives more of this capacity to be people pleasing and to like soften edges and make things comfortable. And when that drops, it's like there is no capacity. Like what's left is something I want to say truer, even though I'm not trying to demonize maid and mother in any sense. Those are valuable and important archetypes and seasons. But what I'm speaking to is that they've been they're overextended and they're not natural to only live in those places. And we're seeing this a lot, for example, in the beauty industry, where there's so much attention on like all the products, all the surgeries to look younger and to maintain this like firmness and yada yada yada. Uh, and it's artificial. It's fundamentally artificial and a loss of energy, a loss of life force energy in those pursuits, because I think the world and this time that we're living in is asking us to show up differently, with a fierceness, and to challenge norms and to bring structures down that don't serve the greater good, because they are formed to protect certain people in power, or certain ways of doing it. That's actually very exploitative and unnatural.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coming back for a second to the tree
Mm.
analogy, or it's for me that also symbolizes that when it's just the trunk of the tree, there's no leaves left. You don't have to spend more energy on maintaining the leaves.
Mm.
So you preserve the energy for yourself. And I feel like that's similar what you talked about, like, and we talked about it this week prior, that this upkeep that we have to do as women to not have gray hair, so we have to dye our hair constantly, and yeah, the cosmetic procedures and these take a lot of money, energy, and time away from us.
Mm.
Um, and for what? So, I mean, that's my main question. And I also don't know how I will approach this topic. For example, my hair. It's naturally as it is today. But now I think that I'm also inspired those women that don't dye their hair. And they have gray hair, and it's also really beautiful. And I feel like it's just, it's very bold, and it's a strong indication that they are happy with themselves as they are. And I like that.
Yeah, it's a strong statement. I'm definitely in a process of weaning off of dyeing my grays. I started um my first gray hair came in when I was 16. So that's been interesting. Also, having black hair, then the grays show more strongly, and I'm scared, and I look forward to being like, it just is what it is. And I right now I'm in a light touch process of like generally dyeing these on the side, but not my whole head.
And it's not to say that it's not okay to do it. That's,
Mhm.
I think it's really good that we have an option. Is just to consider the reason why you do it. It's just if you like yourself more with dyed hair, then I think you should do it, because then it, it adds to your life, or it helps you love yourself.
Yeah,
Then it's better to do it.
thank you. I mean, it's like going out of the house without makeup on. Like for a long time, that was an edge. And then like now I'm more in practice of it. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so okay. And what a freedom. What a freedom of not using time, energy on that. And also, how delicious is it to have access to makeup and play and enhance? So it's such a
Mhm,
personal journey.
mhm.
One of the things that came through when you were talking of um chasing, these youthful beauty standards is how much in our pop culture there's conversation about the fountain of youth. And we see it in movies and in books, etc. And what I'd love for it to be replaced with is chasing the fountain of truth. Like, what would the world look like then
Mhm.
if we were so honest? And especially, I'm thinking about the feminine being like, no, it's a no. You're not gonna take our little children. You're not gonna take from the land without giving back and having it in balance. I I just feel that like mama bear, that lioness, those energies of like gradually getting there as a collective.
Mm.
There of like these things are no's. And we've seen that with the Hungarian politics, right? With your experience of, your prime minister calling things out.
Yeah, radically.
Basically, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pedophilia and pedophilia is just like the worst that he called out, but other things too, like really bad corruption and this power dynamic that has been going on. So yes, it was a radical act, I think, to call this out, and this is where we should, um, yeah, move forward as women too, like to say, okay, no is a no.
I do want to speak to consequences of holding the no, speaking the no, feeling the no, because I think it's easy to say it's always available, but there are consequences, and that's loss. That's loss of I mean, I'm speaking very specifically about my own life of my no in leaving my marriage meant I lost access to a whole network of family members on my ex-husband's side. I lost access to this gorgeous house that you've experienced. I've lost access to feeling grounded, and what a journey that's been to navigate that. And I'm thinking a lot about the descent of Inanna, that myth, which do you know of it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just briefly mention it here, where Inanna is this Sumerian goddess who reigns over 7 kingdoms. And her sister lives in the underworld, and her sister is, looking at it from a mythological perspective, is also part of her. It's not necessarily a separate person. And in order to meet her sister in the underworld, she goes through 7 gates of access to the underworld. And at every gate, she has to give something up. She has to give her like crown of feathers, her cloak of furs, her gold jewelry. And she loses so much and then spends time in the underworld on this meat hook, and then eventually can begin her descent up back into the above world. Or yeah, and what I'm really feeling is loss is part of the process, and it's natural, and oh my god, is it painful. And speaking to this podcast of we talk about the rhythms of living and being, like, I really wish there was more conversation and modeling of what it means to look like to be in pain and to hold the pain while
Mhm.
you still live, like to hold the dying parts and to grieve and to let them go because that is part of the living process. And I mean, I find this all really fascinating of how much we think we're living by like holding on really tight because that's what I had been doing for so many years, and I wasn't living in truth. I was living so misaligned. And so yes, I've gained myself by accessing myself in a way I never knew was possible, and it's so gorgeous while still going through a deep grieving and difficult process. And it's like the trees and their leaves, like letting go of those glorious red, yellow, green leaves and being bare, being on that meat hook like Inanna for a period of time.
And then spring comes again.
Spring comes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mm.
really liked what you said about how to live with pain while you're living your life, or how to grieve. And I feel like I couldn't really do that. So for me, those two processes, if we can call life a process, were very separate. So I was really privileged after my divorce um, that I didn't really have to work for a few months, and I could just grieve, which is not a possibility for many people. And I'm really aware of that, that I could really let myself go in fully to this pain, which was unbearable at moments. So, like, yeah, I remember that there were many, many days where it was so bad and so painful that I started to experience a new feeling of pain that I never experienced before. And I was thinking, oh my God, like this is actually really beautiful to discover a new feeling, even though it's such a heavy and painful one.
Mm.
And yes, there's always beauty also in these things, although it's really hard to see, and it's really, really challenging to process these feelings. But to live your life parallel to it, I think that's very challenging, and it's not possible without support.
Yeah, totally agree. Oh.
And how has it been for no. How has it been for you to come out on the other side of this? Like divorced, and then after you're in your Enchantress era.
Yeah. Well, I think the divorce is one sign of being in my Enchantress era. It's not like the divorce is the reason that I live the life I live. It's almost like it was the marriage was in the way of the life I wanted to live, which was honestly as simple as just being me, feeling it's okay to light incense and sing chants in my own house, you know, and not um always tracking like am I safe to just show up as I am, wearing whatever I want, speaking my truth, that type of thing. So I I've heard, I don't know if this is going to be true. I've heard that the time to heal and grieve a relationship is around half of the time of the relationship. So I was in this relationship for 19 years. So we're looking at 19 years. And there's still this intense enmeshment because our financials are not settled. But I'm mentally out of that relationship in many ways, and then also not in other ways. Like, I still have dreams about my ex that are scary to me. And I feel that little girl, that fawning energy come up in my system. And so a lot of my process is reparenting myself and being like, I know this is hard, darling. And we got to write the tough email. We got to say the thing. We need to keep going, and acknowledge that we don't know, like, the mother of Perna and the child of Perna and all her parts. We don't know how long this is going to take to complete, both emotionally and like literally in terms of the settlement. I'd also say there's a lot of crying, and what a gift crying is to me. I mean, there's that deliciousness of something moving through and walking and sleeping, are also like pillars of my practice of how I take care of myself and navigate the ups and downs. I would say the hardest part is trying to hold it all together while I parent, and not being able to share because it's inappropriate to share exactly what I'm going through with my kids, because I do want to support their relationship with their dad and not color it in with my own experience of him, because he's different to me than he is with them, and they do need their dad. So this sort of, I can't be fully in my truth because that creates a lack of safety and a lack of full protection for my children. That's really an edge. And sometimes I'm proud of myself of how I navigate it, and sometimes I'm not. And trying to stay compassionate with myself of like, okay, we're learning, Aparna, we're learning to not react when something's said, or not be like, don't you realize, this trait means XYZ. And also noting my children are different ages. So some of them can discern human behavior better. The older ones can do that better than the younger or the youngest one, for example. Speaking with you, journaling, and also being held in a very loving relationship. That's so,
Mm.
and to experience the beauty of man in a different way, and to
Mm.
not stereotype has been really powerful, because I love men. I love who they are and their energies and the dynamism between us women and men, and I never want to male bash, but
Mm.
it's challenging when so much of the way men present is dominating, and it's like trying to access our spark and not feed
Mm.
us, or stand by us, but coming from a controlling place. So learning. I know I've been talking a lot, but but I am speaking to the complexity of what it is to heal and grieve. And the last thing I want to mention is being in a container where I get to talk about this. So this is the feminism class that I've been in for 2 years straight. It's called Getting Freer from the Patriarchy. It's hosted by this brilliant woman, Robin Clark, and we go through specific things that are said or dynamics, and problem solve and support each other in that. So that's a huge part of this healing process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing. It's beautiful to listen to your experience and how you express it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. it takes a lot of time. So my experience about my own divorce, I have 1 more year left if we count that
Ooh.
it's half of the time to get over it. Um, is that this is also cyclical, how the process goes. So I remember certain times where I knew that some cords um, were cut between us. Like, maybe after half a year, 9 months, whatever, different time frames. But there were certain points where I was feeling, okay, something has ended between us energetically and also in the physical realm, obviously. Conversations or like the divorce papers were done or whatever. And and then at those moments I feel like, oh, it's over. And it's not over. So after a few of these, I was like, I acknowledge that it's not over, but some part of it is over. And I think that helped me not to push myself um, to have an expectation to fully be over with my divorce or that relationship. And yeah, it's just such a relief to live like that, because I remember also when I still had those expectations, and maybe from other people too, um, in my circle, that are you done with the grieving, or what's next and stuff like that. It doesn't work like that, because even though I'm in a new relationship and I'm getting married, that previous one still hasn't completely ended. Now I feel like it has ended, but I also don't dare to say this anymore because maybe it hasn't. And, I don't want to be naive about it. Um, I think it's just step by step, I need to tend to it to end um, this energetic relationship whenever I have a chance to do something about it. Whenever I have the capacity to tend to it.
Mhm. Does it come through naturally of like, okay, now it's time to go downstairs into your rage room and throw plates or
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very natural now. Yeah. And I don't push it away. So that's the only thing that I consciously do is I stop and, okay, it's time to do something about it, or it's time to reflect. Yeah, maybe let some rage out, or and also I want to say it's not necessarily toward him anymore. That part was done maybe 2 years ago already, out of 4 years. It's interesting. And then since then, it's more about how could I let what happened happen? So it's like self-hate. Uh, and that's the worst. And I remember the first time it came up after we separated, maybe a few days after, so really, really close. I drove out to the ocean. I was in Portugal, and then I screamed in the car so loudly for minutes. And what I was feeling like, how could I have let it happen? That was the feeling, not like, oh, I hate him or I want to blame him or whatever. It's like, why? And I think that's the main process that I'm in still, to love myself and to have self-compassion.
Hmm. Did you did do you ever get answers when you ask that question, how did I let that happen? Because I completely relate.
I did, and I do.
Mm.
Um, I think it's somehow logical to me, as um, my childhood and all the other experiences unfolded. as I went to therapy, as I meditated, as I journaled, with all the practices, I understood that this is a thread that naturally continued and peaked in this marriage. This started when I was a child.
Yeah.
It's anxious attachment basically, and I think maybe we should have an episode on these attachment styles, because I really believe that, at least for me, they gave many answers when I understood how these dynamics work between people. And we had a very typical anxious avoidant attachment with my ex-husband, which really stems from my own relationship with my father and both my parents, but specifically with my dad and other things. So I also don't want to blame everything on my father. But once I understood this, then all the other things made sense, because my ex also made a lot of mistakes, also by picking me. I think that was the first mistake, or picking each other, choosing each other, based on these patterns, that based on these holes that we wanted to fill with each other.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I think that's the biggest achievement probably for me in the past 4 years, that I, one, understood this. I have awareness about it. And then I consciously decided that I want to change this, and that I would choose a partner differently. Interestingly, now we are anxious. I think it works much better. One, I know what he's thinking because I'm thinking the same. So whenever um, he needs some things, I know the place that he needs it from.
Hmm.
Um, and on the other hand, this makes things more difficult, because we have the same wounds, and sometimes they exaggerate each other, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and the main thing is that the dynamic that comes with this anxious avoidant is a very natural dynamic, I feel like. And that dynamic is lost now. So we have to build a healthy relationship, basically. And we have to have a balance. But this balance we never knew.
Hmm.
This was never modeled for either of us. And I also don't know people in my peer group who had these kind of relationships. It's insane to think about this. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, the secure attachment. What does that look like? And thank you for sharing all of that. There's so much, there's such richness in your share. And I feel just on that one point, the secure attachment starts with ourselves. And you spoke about it in our last episode of like, you're ready for a new chapter because you have so much self-love that you've developed through the years with all that inner work. Um, and that's also very much part of my process of like decentering anyone else, whether it's an institution. I left my corporate job in this time period that I left my marriage, and it was very much like it's a little hard to explain, but a value system that I didn't necessarily decide or feed into, and understanding how I was playing the part both in the marriage and in the job, and how on one hand I'm totally capable of doing that, um but where's the me in that dynamic? And that's what like every day looks like, of like, wait, what do I want? Or what do I want to eat? Or when do I want to go to bed? Or how do I want to spend my time? Even though it doesn't look like it fits other models. And that's really interesting to hold and to surrender into of like, well, Aparna, actually there is the model. The model is nature. And we're just not living in that reflection of nature. I just feel like nature is the ultimate truth, because first of all, it's not man-made. It's not anthropomorphic, right? Like where man's the center. No, it's like the whole system, the harmony, that's what it's really about. And the elements working together, the species, working together. And of course there's predators and preys, but you know what I'm talking about. It's coming from a different set of organizational principles. And then one other thing that I just want to add, when you were talking about your healing and grieving comes in cycles and this releasing of your ex-partner, but also this, this younger version of yourself. You didn't exactly say that, but I'm picking up on that. That reminds me once again of the tree and the tree growing a ring every year, right? And I remember a really emotional experience where I was speaking to a dear friend and I was like, how will I ever get my ex out of my system? Like, I'm trying. I'm like, I'm showing up. And she's like, darling, he's part of your system. He's part of your system. Like and I'm thinking of that ring now. Like that ring is an example of life happened here and being that living testimony, testament to life goes on.
I really like that you said that, and I will incorporate this analogy into my healing because I also had these ideas that I have to let him out of my system, but that's not the answer. He's part of my story, and I'm also part of his story. And, that version of me who married him is part of me.
Mhm.
And I think that's beautiful because I made a decision at the time that I believed in. And I have to respect that because this is also what's happening now. Now I'm making a new decision based on my best knowledge right now. And yeah, what can I do? You cannot control the outcome.
No, that's super dangerous when you try to. Um, and also like that younger version of yourself that married your ex. I was speaking about my younger version that married my ex. She was so influenced by so many things. Um, I really relate to like actually it was a natural extension of like life to that point of okay, go in this direction. But what's interesting is those things, which fundamentally for me is a lot of outside information, outside noise, or attachment to fantasy, attachment to a lifestyle, pursuing motherhood, those no longer have like hooks in my system because one, I've lived and have had time to reflect and really look at where I was making decisions from and how many people were making that decision for me. I mean, just growing up being like, your main purpose is to be a wife and like, yeah, have your education because that's going to give you more prospects. Like that's crazy. And maybe my parents won't agree with it, but that's how I understood it. That value came from being a wife and a mother.
Yeah, yeah. I have a note that I wrote down maybe like, I don't know, 2 years ago that my parents prepared me for my first marriage and I prepared myself for my second.
Mm.
And I think it's not just my parents, but as you mentioned, like society expectations, dreams that you were planted in. Yes,
Uh,
but this time around is different.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Oh.
beautiful. I see, like, yourself as, like, your own fairy godmother, like, like, sewing the dress for Cinderella, and I mean, I think that is the invitation for everyone to be the thing that we all need to be that as much as possible and acknowledge we need other people, like friendship and healthy partnership, but not try to avoid the responsibility of being an adult and actually having a lot of agency to give ourselves this a lot of support.
Yeah, I agree. Mm. Thank you so much again for this conversation.
Thank you too.
Oh, and we will continue with the last archetype, the crone, in the next one. So come with
Sounds
us.
looking forward to
Yeah.
it. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.